Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. I'm starting a series of videos all about after enlightenment, things that still exist. This first one being after enlightenment, there still is desire. Now, I've got a couple other videos in my head, so it's a short series in my head right now. But if you have any questions or things that you're wondering about, does this or that still exist after enlightenment? Post below, and that will give me ideas and fodder for potential other videos. But let's return to after enlightenment, there is still desire. There's this ongoing, almost myth, but it comes up so regularly. There's this common misconception that all desire is gone after enlightenment. The point is not to get rid of all desire. That it's not the point. After enlightenment, there is still desire. What ceases to arise is craving, longing, and thirsting. This might be due to translations out of old texts. Say, take Buddhism. They'll talk about tanha being the root of dukkha, which is suffering. And unfortunately, in English, tanha is often translated as desire. And so a lot of American Buddhists get this idea that desire is the root of suffering. But tanha, more specifically, I think means craving, thirsting, longing, needing might be a way to put it. And in a way, you can think about it as a desire with attachment. Because after enlightenment, it's still possible to play games. And let's say you and I are going to play a game of cards. Now, the game is only fun if we're all trying to win, because that provides the competition and challenge. If you had no desire to win whatsoever, and so didn't even bother trying to win, it's not much fun to play with you, and you probably won't find it much fun either. And so it is possible to desire to win, even after enlightenment. Having the desire to win does not mean you're not enlightened. Now, the desire to win will fuel the trying to win. Because there's a desire to win, you'll try to win. And so the game is played. What does not happen is there's no attachment to that desire. It doesn't become a needing to win. And so it's not like all desire causes suffering, because if you just had the desire to win, so you tried to win, but you had no craving, longing, or needing to win, well then if you lose the game, you're not broken up by it. You're not discontent. You're not dissatisfied by losing the game. What the point of the game was to play the game and enjoy the playing of the game, not the winning or losing. And so the desiring to play, the desiring to enjoy trying to win is fine. It's the needing to win that causes the suffering. If you need to win and you lose, then you're unhappy, then you're discontent, then you're dissatisfied. And like so many people, spectators or players that take the game way too seriously, when they lose, they sometimes have a fit. They might throw things around. They might scream, they might yell, they might cry, who knows? All this stuff arises because they lost, and there was a thirsting, craving, needing to win. And also they really believed in the loss as something personal. I lost. So, in playing the game, you don't necessarily have to believe in an actual winning and losing something. Because if you're just playing points, whether you're up a point or down a point, doesn't particularly matter. You might try to accumulate as many points as you can because you're trying to win, and it's more fun trying to win and accumulate points. But if you're suddenly losing a bunch of points, you're not feeling a personal loss. You didn't lose something because of this. And so that's what I mean, that after enlightenment, desire still exists. There is still desire. The desire could be to win a game. The desire could be to learn things, to pursue hobbies. Sometimes I have people ask me, after enlightenment, is there still interests? Can you still have hobbies? Well, of course you can, because there's still desire. And so you might have the desire to write. And so you might start writing articles or books or composing poetry or whatever, because there's a desire to do this. Or you might play music or compose music or do any other kind of hobby or interest, because there's a desire to do it. Just like the desire to play the game because it's fun. The actual playing of the game is fun. And so there's a desire to go, I wouldn't mind playing a game. And so you go play a game, maybe a video game or solitaire, or even, if there's someone else that doesn't want to play with you, you can play by yourself. There's ways to play. And you play because there's a desire. And one of the ways this desire to play is expressed is in interests and hobbies. So the two are not unrelated. And so because there is still desire after enlightenment, there is still interests and hobbies. And so, I've got a desire to eat good food. So I like cooking. I like eating at good restaurants. It's me and my wife both together, like enjoying, good food together, or discovering a new restaurant, or finding a new recipe. And so it is a continued interest, a hobby. Why? Because there's desire. If there was absolutely no desire whatsoever, then, it doesn't particularly matter what you eat. But can be a subtle, I call it a subtle or light desire because there's no attachment in it. It's like I could have the desire to have a good meal, but if I go somewhere and it turns out the food was horrible, or I'm at somebody's house and I didn't like how they cooked things, if I go somewhere and I don't like the food, it doesn't ruin my day. It's not like I'm all broken up, suffering, dissatisfied because of a bad meal. Bad meals are inevitable, especially when you're exploring and learning. I mean, you don't know how the food's going to taste when you make a recipe. You don't know how the food's going to taste if you go to a restaurant you've never been to. I remember this one time, many years ago, when I was still in Minnesota. Me and my wife still laugh about this, but we had a neighbor who told us about this restaurant. He was going on and on about how great the food was because he just really loved it. And so based on his recommendation, we go there. And in both of our minds, the food was horrendous. It was, it was basically, Velveeta on macaroni was their macaroni and cheese. It was reheated whatever, microwaved whatever. I don't even know if anything was actually cooked there, rather just reheated stuff that wasn't that good to begin with. And the meal was really bad. But it brings joy to me and my wife to this day, because every time someone walks up to us and goes, "Hey, I've got a great restaurant for you," we both look at each other knowing, is it going to be someone that has a similar taste to us, or is it going to be like our neighbor who refers something that we're not going to like? And so, it becomes that experience is actually added to the joy of the adventure of trying things. And so it was not a disappointment, dissatisfaction kind of thing that caused suffering. I didn't suffer because of the bad restaurant experience. It was just another adventure. And you win some, you lose some, like any game. But that's the difference. It's a kind of a subtle difference between desire and, as I use the terms, craving, longing, needing. Because in English, desire is a vague term. And a longing, a needing could be considered a desire. just like a desire to win the game could be considered a desire. The wanting of any kind could be considered a desire. But not all wants, not all desires are equal. There can be the desire to win the game, and there could be the needing and longing to win the game, which are two different desires. You could desire to win the game without really needing to win the game. And in that way, you can play sincerely and enjoy the game and not play it seriously and be discontent or suffer if you lose. It's not that serious. So that's a distinction. So, when I see online people talk about, if there's no desire after enlightenment, it's a false premise right out of the start. Because desire still exists after enlightenment. It's a different kind of desire. It doesn't have the attachment. It doesn't have the stickiness that craving, longing, needing, thirsting requires. And so I hope that makes sense. But again, if there's, this is going to be kind of like a mini series of videos. And so the next video, I'll cover some other aspect of after enlightenment, whatever still exists. But again, if you got any questions, comments, or things you're wondering about if it still exists after enlightenment, please post below, and I will take that into consideration in the future videos. But until next time, thank you much.